Hello, I'm Cindy Arenberg Seltzer, President and CEO of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. Welcome to another edition of Future First, Focus on Broward's Children. Today, I am so pleased to have as honored guests Congressman Alcee Hastings from Florida's 20th Congressional District and Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz from Florida's 23rd Congressional District. Both encompass a large portion of Broward County as well as Palm Beach, Hendry, and Miami Dade. As senior members of Congress, they have helped shape legislation and policies affecting the lives of South Floridians across the spectrum, and especially children. I am so honored to have the two of you here. You are two people I admire greatly, and the work you do is outstanding.
Thank you. The pleasure's ours.
So one of the things I really want to make sure that we talk about is the effort that you two have led to deal with race relations and our police force. Mm-hmm. Your task force is called community policing, but it's really a lot more than that. Congressman Hastings,
sure,
can you
no
start
problem.
that off?
Debbie and I were on the floor and had a discussion during the period that the Ferguson, Missouri situation had arisen. And we determined that it was best to think long range about these issues and to get the community, meaning the police, people in the community, faith-based organizations, and particularly schools, involved in an ongoing discussion. And you've participated with us in that, and
yes,
we're
sir.
very grateful to you as well as all of the police departments, all the various schools that we've dealt with. And we're now in our 7th month,
Yeah.
and getting ready to do a preliminary report and then widen our scope with reference to involvement of people. But it's so important. What we don't want is an explosion like that to take place here and for us not to have a mechanism to continue dialogue. Mm-hmm.
It was really important for both of us to recognize that even though we had not had an explosion in our community related to an encounter with law enforcement and youth or anyone in the community, we really, knowing our communities so well, felt that there was tension simmering just below the surface. Mm-hmm. And it was important for us to get out in front of it, to foster dialogue that some communities who have had this shootings and tension bubble to the surface, that we make sure we start that dialogue ahead of time instead of after a tragedy strikes. So it's really been eye-opening. We knew that it would be, but having the opportunity to speak with young people in roundtable discussions, in high school assemblies, having our law enforcement leadership all across Broward County really has been so gratifying. The turnout and the participation of law enforcement and of the community leadership like yourself has really demonstrated to us that it is possible for us to come together as a community and that there is a desire. And it's going to prove over the long term that we will have an opportunity to create relationships where there weren't before. And we know with dialogue and communication and relationships that you're going to avoid tragedies potentially when they might have been there
and
otherwise.
It's important, I think, that we mention Sheriff Israel, largely for the reason that he was on a path that was similar. And I had discussions with him, and he, as well as the chiefs of police, and we don't have the time to go into all of them, but every department in this community has been involved. And we've taken our voice from the children that we've been around who have a total insight into whether or not they're going to work with the police or not, and the things that they're seeing. And we've had some startling revelations come from our children and the discussions that we've had at Dillard and very recently and at Hallandale High, and we intend to continue that effort. It can't be a one-off.
Right.
It has to be a sustained effort.
Exactly.
I've been really impressed with the commitment of the police chiefs, that they keep coming.
Right.
And the part that you've tasked me with as co-chair of the Education Committee, that part about making sure that the children understand the police role, but also that the police understand the children, and they sat and listened.
They did.
That last meeting in Hallandale, it was a little painful, but they did. Have you gotten any reaction from them since about what they thought about the hearing from the children?
Well, you can see, people vote with their feet and their presence, and so because leaders like these chiefs of police
and mayors,
yes, and the state attorney, they have so much on their plate that they keep coming back, and they're committed to participating in this and listening and absorbing some of the commentary that has a very colorful range of the way it's communicated. Obviously, I'm the mom of twin high school kids and a preteen, and I can assure you that color is something that you get a little used to when you're a mom of teens. But the comments range from very insightful to raw, and these are kids that are experiencing, when a traffic stop happens, and we've heard stories from them with, the exactly right way to handle a young person when a law enforcement officer stops them, and vice versa, and the very wrong way it should happen, and presumptions that are made about youth simply because of the way they look. And I'm not just even talking about skin color. There are, if a kid is dressed in a way that a law enforcement officer doesn't like, there are some officers that simply automatically make assumptions. You could have an honor student that could be wearing the latest style of the day, and it's inappropriate to make assumptions about that kid, especially if he or she was not doing anything other than driving, and they get stopped for a minor infraction that normally maybe the law enforcement officer wouldn't stop them. And so these are what we need to do, and what we've, I think, learned very clearly is that we need to have law enforcement be more comfortable with youth in the community, and the youth in the community need to feel more comfortable with law enforcement. And the only way to achieve that is to make sure that there is regular interaction when there's not a problem.
Right. And we also should offer up kudos to, Debbie mentioned briefly, the state attorney, Mike Satz, Chief Judge Peter Weinstein.
Absolutely.
They have been at every one of our meetings.
Themselves. They're coming themselves.
Right. And our intent is to, rather than have the Justice Department come down here and do an investigation on patterns and practices, we want the Justice Department at some point to come in and assist us in best practices that they have learned from their other investigations around the United States.
And I think you mentioned earlier Sheriff Israel and his commitment to civil citation. Also, while it didn't come out of this work, I think can be a great contribution to diffusing things.
Absolutely.
That kind of has a spillover effect, because Palm Beach now has decided that that's the direction that they want to go. And it does help so much to cause young people not to have an early on a criminal violation on their records. I think with the extraordinary work that you all do at Children's Services, that initial action where a child is said to be violative of the law may very well at some point lead to complications that will cause that same child not to be able to get a job.
Right.
And then you have all of the other interventions that take place when a person is not able to go forward with gainful employment.
And diversionary programs are an opportunity to set a young person on the right track when they have gone astray. Depending on what's going on in that young person's personal life, they may not have the best example at home. They may have had a very difficult week. There might be a serious illness in their family, and young people, by definition, don't have the experience to always have the best judgment. And so allowing for that with a diversionary program, so they avoid a criminal record and they can have programming that and people that they can communicate with and experts that can help them, it can not only address the infraction that they may have committed, but it can also help them maybe put their life on a more constructive track. And
Debbie and I have also been advocates for and helped to bring resources here for drug courts,
yes,
which is yet another area, and Palm Beach County has kind of taken the lead on veterans courts, which is yet another arena with veterans with children have substantial complications, and if you can have an intervention, then maybe they'll be able to stabilize their families as well as themselves.
The PACE Center for Girls is a remarkable program,
without question,
that we're so proud of, that started in Florida and started in South Florida and now is all over the state, and they do a fantastic job, bringing in girls who would be dropouts otherwise that were victims of sex trafficking or at risk for trafficking, and that's something I know that the CSC.
I have a question for you, Cindy. Did you know Doug Inslee?
He, I know of him, but he was gone before I came to Broward.
Well, when I came here 52 years ago, I became involved with Doug Inslee. And many of the things that spawned from that, the Children's Services Council came from work that this visionary person undertook. Also, he helped us to become the original signatories of the poverty provision here, the Economic Opportunity program that was developed here. Doug was clearly a person ahead of his time, and obviously helped in race relations an awful lot. And a lot of us, Cora Brainerd and myself, were directly involved with him in the early development of this particular program as well as others. And I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes we have people like that in our lives that have affected so much of the community service that it's helpful from an historic standpoint to know where some of it came from.
Continuing the history, though, from the Children's Services Council that was originally part of the county commission's budget, when I led the Broward delegation as a state legislator, we were able to get the question of whether we would create the Children's Services Council on the ballot as a special taxing district and go much further than the county commission was able to in terms of the resources that we could provide to children's programming. And you have been the leader of the Children's Services Council since its inception and have done a remarkable job. It's just a tremendous source of pride for us in Broward County to have such an incredible institution as the Children's Services Council, so we can demonstrate every single day what kind of a priority our children are.
I'm so grateful to you for both having the insight to create the CSC and for the council giving me the opportunity to build a government from the ground up.
Well, we're lucky to have
and
you.
I trust do it right. It is a great source of pleasure to me, and to partner with both of you on so many important issues. Another one I want to make sure that we talk about that's so important to all of us, but especially you, Debbie, is water safety.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We've had way too many drownings. Years ago, the county, the school board, and then as the CSC was created, the CSC got together and said we need to have a program that works together, of course with your leadership as well, that became Swim Central.
Yes.
Swim Central has worked primarily with the school-age children, and we've pretty much almost eradicated the drownings of the school-age children. The 0 to 4, however, has been a big problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've done a lot in that area, and I wanted you to share some of that.
Thank you.